Hey, hey, Blue Table fans! Sean here, and it is a Friday night. That's right. So I went to see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I'm not to be trusted in my movie reviews because I find meaning and beauty in everything that I see, so there's really no way for me to give a proper critique of a movie. Now, you've got Alien Covenant coming out. When I was in elementary school, sixth grade, Alien came out, and a friend of mine brought a picture book from the movie, like a screen capture book, and that thing just scared the living crap out of me. Just, just the pictures of it were enough to they just gave me nightmares for 6 years. And so I I did not really like that. But I think as a senior in high school, Aliens came out, and my friends were all going to see it. So I was like, you know what? Probably time to conquer my fears. Let's go check it out. And sure enough, I didn't have nightmares about it after that, and it was all good. It's all good. But boy, that creature really freaked me out. Yeah, that was about it for me. So now, just as a just as a side note, man, makes me want to play Tyranids. Can I just tell you? And anyway, so Alien Covenant is coming out, and I want to go see it. But I hadn't seen Prometheus, and I thought, you know what? Now's the time to finally see Prometheus. And I thought, you know what? I'm smarter than other people. And he said, tongue in cheekedly, and because the movie's gotten a lot of criticism, and so I was like, all right, well, how bad could it be? You know, it's probably not as bad as they say. And so I rented it. I'm glad I didn't buy it because, guys, it was as terrible as they say. Great effects. It was very slick. It was pretty good for a regular science fiction movie, but maybe I just didn't understand it, how good it really was. Still gonna go see Alien Covenant, and now let's go ahead and segue right into Warhammer 40K. Here's the what is it, Warhammer community page. I finally found this, right? And all right, so I've got a few phases to catch up on with you guys. One of them, and I'm going to read them and tell you my opinions on it. So this is an opinion piece. New Warhammer 40K morale. In the 41st millennium, war morale plays a vital role. Battles can be won and lost by the brave actions of a few stubborn defenders, etc., etc. Morale has been a part of every edition of 40K, and it could largely be ignored. So many units were immune to its various effects. This is referring to Space Marines. About half of all armies are Space Marines, let's just say. Because of And They Shall Know No Fear, you've got, I really should turn my other sounds off. So basically, it's just kind of irrelevant, and in a lot of my games, it's just ignored altogether. And but they do say it can have the effect of bogging down the game, which is true if you have to make a lot of morale tests. New morale phase is simple. I predict it happens at the end. Once per player's turn, at the end of all your other phases, there it is. Haha. Awesome. Yes, I was right. It will apply to almost every unit and represents warriors fleeing the battlefield, dying from the psychic feedback shockwaves of their allies, or retreating with injured or fallen brethren. That is brilliant. It's not just running away. It could be anything that happens. And so it's like Age of Sigmar, which is very elegant. So let's say a unit of 20 cultists has a morale of, or leadership. I don't know if they'll call it morale. Maybe I should check the the stat line that they released. But anyway, so let's say their leadership is 7, and they lose 10 guys. So at the end of the turn, you take that number 10, and it's models, not wounds, which is really a big deal. And at the end of the turn, you roll a d6, you add it. So let's say you roll a 4, so that's 14. So for every point over the leadership, you take off an additional model. And there's no units falling back, regroup tests, or anything. All that's gone. And it is brutal. They say here, you can see straight away this will be pretty brutal and means that units that suffer high casualties in a turn stand to lose a lot more come the morale phase if they roll poorly. So with the cultists, out of the unit of 20, 10 would die to shooting or whatever it was, and that another 7 would die from morale. And that is pretty brutal and really speaks to concentrating fire on a single unit. Now, take a unit of centurions, for example. A unit of 3, let's say crisis suits. That's one that seems more relevant to me. And so let's say they have a leadership of 8. So what does that mean? So if 2 guys die, because if 3 models die, then it doesn't matter, they're just dead. But let's say 2 models die, so you roll the d6, and even if you roll a 6, the worst roll, you are still going to be at your leadership of 8 or under. So in a way, some of those smaller units are going to become effectively fearless, and it's not going to affect you. And it might speak to having smaller units of guys on the board, so you don't just lose a ton of guys to morale. That's just something that occurred to me. And then they point out there's things that can modify morale or leadership. Oh, there you go. It is called leadership. The Hemlock Wraith Fighter decreases leadership of enemy units by 1 if they're within 12 inches. Now, when you're assessing these stats or these abilities, do bear in mind whether they're cumulative or not. So do 3 Wraith Fighters reduce your leadership by 3? Is it cumulative? In that case, you really can, I mean, that'll really have a big effect. Okay, let's move on. Fight phase. Okay, not called close combat. That's one. This part of the new 40K universe has some of the biggest changes. We've already seen in our article on unit profiles that initiative has gone. Instead, the priority for striking is based on the previous phase, with those units that completed a charge swinging first. There's a definite emphasis on making charging into combat effective. Now, by the way, in terms of order, I'll bet it goes back and forth like an Age of Sigmar, which is really a big deal. And I don't have time to explain it right now, but my prediction is that's what they're going to do. There's a definite emphasis on making charging into combat effective. These units have gone all the way across the battlefield. They braved enemy fire in Overwatch, and now made it into hand-to-hand combat. They will, at the very least, get to swing. Well, will they? Can they be wiped out before being able to swing back? Units that activate gain a free 3-inch move toward the closest enemy. This can be used to get within 1 inch of other enemy units if you're cunning, dragging more foes into melee and preventing them from shooting their next turn, even if you didn't charge them directly, giving them no chance to overwatch. Enemy gun lines will need to be careful about how they position their supporting units so as to avoid getting dragged into the fight too. Now with Age of Sigmar is, for all the flack that it gets, is a very carefully crafted system. And so I predict the same here. So for example, it doesn't say a free 3-inch movement, it says free 3-inch move toward the closest enemy. And if you're charging and you have to charge the closest thing, for example, because they don't talk about that, then it's going to be hard to execute those drag in positioning, but not impossible. And it's going to make for a very interesting game, if you ask me. With Age of Sigmar, I believe the only limitation on your charge is that you have to end up in coherency. And so that means you can't just starburst a unit out and charge everything in sight. You have to do it within certain limitations, but you can do effectively multiple charges. And I can't remember what that was called. Maybe it's called multiple charges. And it's kind of a big deal. When I was playing Rich with his orcs, boy, that would just get me every time. And of course, I'm not a very good player, so. Following charges, players take it in turns to activate units across the board to fight. Okay, that's exactly what I said. This can get quite tactical as both players need to choose the combats where dealing maximum damage will be important to them while trying to limit enemy retaliation on their valuable or fragile models. Yep, there you go. So it is possible for your unit to get into close combat and then because of the way that they activate, just get wiped out effectively. There are a few units that can interrupt this sequence to attack out of turn 2. Tyranids with Lash Whips and Slaaneshi Demons, for example, and it can also be influenced by stratagems. More on those soon. If your army is battle forged, all of which add a nuanced level of tactical depth to the phase. Players will have much more influence over the outcome of combat now, rather than purely the stats of the models involved, both in their own and in their opponent's turns, though we still wouldn't expect guardsmen to triumph over a unit of Khorne berserkers. Another thing we have seen is that hit rolls are now fixed. This has the effect of making dedicated combat units generally hit on a 3+, and then some hit on a 2+ now, like special characters. Close combat weapons also gain new rules. Some will slice through armor easily, and by the way, this is probably going to be a modification to the armor save, which is really a throwback to how they had it in the beginning. Like, it wasn't always armor piercing, nothing versus armor. While others will hit with enough force to deal multiple wounds are back. I think it hasn't been since 2nd edition that you've had multiple wounds. Like, it used to be that things would cost like D10 wounds or whatever it was. Across the board, these changes lead to combats that are more deadly than ever. And boy, is that true. So I'd love to see a game that goes faster, smoother, and the push and pull of a brutal combat where you can see the game resolved more quickly, both as individual units and overall for the entire game. That would be really cool. Okay, here it comes. Next phase. I'm at 13 minutes, by the way. I'm trying to get this down to 20 minutes. Charge phase. So let me just sum this up. Nice intro. You can select any unit within 12 inches as the target of your charge, and your units will move towards them 2d6 inches. Now, you only have to get within 1 inch. So that's interesting because if someone is exactly 13 inches away, you can technically successfully charge them. But you can't. They have to be within 12 inches. So that's just a little nuance. And enemy units still have a chance to hit the charging unit with Overwatch, provided that they are not already in combat. Just now, that's something in Age of Sigmar that I don't really like, is that units locked in combat can still shoot. They can even shoot the things that they're in combat with. Hit on a flat 6, just like it is now. In current Warhammer 40k, you need to reach base contact. Now you only need to be within 1 inch. And that's going to be a really, really, really big deal. I can't even describe it. Because that means if they're 8 inches away, you don't need an 8 on your charge, you need a 7. And you also can't move within 1 inch of an enemy you didn't declare as the target of your charge. And I hope that's at any point during their movement. Like, unengaged things have like a bubble around them. So if you want to engage multiple units, you need to brave Overwatch fire of all of them. Overwatch can be fired multiple times, but as soon as the unit is engaged, they will no longer be able to fire back. So again, you'll see the strategy of sending in smaller units first to tie that up. And it does say units, not models. So that's a toughie. So if an orc Defcopta hits one guy, that whole unit apparently is locked down. And keep its current mechanics. All right, we've got time for one more. Shooting phase. I think we already did this. You won't be able to shoot units that are in combat with other units, but you can fall back. That's pretty good. I think that's it. Did I already go over shooting? I think I did. The last big change is cover saves. Let's see. Is a bonus to your armor save. Now, this was different than what I thought. I thought cover would, like previous editions, give a minus to hit, but instead it gives a bonus to your armor save, and that means you can actually blast through cover with like a las cannon. And I find that very interesting, and I wonder how they're going to do that. I think the las cannon had a -3 to the armor, so a Space Marine on a 3-up power armor save would still get a 6 versus a las cannon. That's very telling. And so the minimum cover could give would be a +1 to armor, and that would mean a Space Marine would get a 5-up save, which is extremely, extremely interesting. And that makes me wrong on the count of the flamers, meaning I said, well, if the flamer doesn't need ignore cover because they hit automatically, but apparently if it adds to the armor instead of subtracting from the hit roll, then you will get effectively cover saves versus flamers and stuff, or at least they'll improve your saves. So, and then of course some things still ignore the bonus cover save. And of course the big question is, how will it affect charging through cover? Because right now that's a pretty big deal. And of course I'm looking at Tyranids and thinking, wouldn't it be great if Tyranids were in the mix again? And right now, let me tell you, I am not getting much for 40K commissions. And that, of course, 8th edition has been a long time coming, and that has not been great for blue table painting. But you know what? When it comes out, it's going to be an absolute flood of commissions. So here it comes. I'm now at Fayette 212, F-A-E-I-T, and that's News and Rumors. The owner is Gary, stand-up guy, absolutely love him. He's been out to Valhalla a couple times. And detachments. Yeah, I really want to talk about this. So formations are gone. Thank goodness. Good riddance. That was all so confusing. You'd go to the table and not really know what your opponent was going to bring, not knowing what they would do. It was just a huge barrier to entry. And I think from what I'm reading here, you've got the battlefield roles are expanded, so you have HQ, troops, elites, all that. But there's also dedicated transports, flyers, fortifications, and Lords of War. So there's 9 battlefield roles as opposed to the old 5. And they've almost doubled it. Formations are gone. So what happens is you've got these detachments, and it's much like the old force organization chart, but you get what are they called? Command points. So if you choose, say, a brigade detachment, which is pretty limited, you got to have 6 troops choices in it, for example. But you do get 9 command points. And from what I'm reading, the command points are what are going to activate not only generic-like abilities during the game, but they're going to be able to be used for things specific to your army book. So in a way, they've rebalanced all the detachments and still included that unique army book flavor. So if you brought a brigade detachment, you could use your command point for, like, say, Gene Stealer Cult. You could use your command points to activate Gene Stealer culty things. Well, that's how I'm reading it and predicting it. So we'll see if I'm right. And so I think it's really neat, because then you can just do what you want and have a lot of flexibility, which I've always wanted. So guys, this is what we got for today. We're coming up on 20 minutes. I want to thank you all for tuning in. And if you'd like BTP to do your army, we're still have quite a great lineup of artists, and we're producing some really fantastic armies. You saw that Warlord Titan, the Wood Elves are coming through. We had an Eldar Corsairs army, and there's something on top of that that I haven't really disseminated, is that I'm offering a new program now. I did it as a special on and off again, but now I'm making it, as far as I can tell, I'm making it sort of a permanent thing. And that is the just get it done level. So the BTP system of um, classifying paint jobs goes from 0 to 10, and we only do level 3 to 7. And this scale is like the Richter scale. It's not a mathematical progression. Can't remember the word. It's exponential. And so, for example, a level 8 figure, which would be competition quality, will take easily, let's see if I can do the calculation in my head, 50 to 80 times the effort of a level 3 model. So it's like the Richter scale, and let's see here. Boy, you're really not seeing much fun on your screen. So anyway, but it's notably less expensive. I mean, we're talking the pricing could be put up against almost anywhere in the world. And by going through Utah, the big advantage is we're right in the middle of the US in terms of shipping. And things get to us very safely. They don't have to go through customs unless, of course, you're sending from outside the country. And it's really great. Blue Table Painting is in a good position geographically as well as generally. So anyway, contact me at projects@bluetablepainting.com, and we're certainly the workhorse studio that's out there. Oh, also want to give a shout out. Let's see if I can get this summed up on Facebook really quick. To Wargamers Online. This is a UK wargaming news station, and I did an interview with them, and I saw them on Wargamers Hangout with Miranda, aka Wargamer Girl, and they were all like talking equally, right? No one dominating the conversation, and I was a little embarrassed because I was like, oh, I kind of, you know, didn't let any of them talk. Yeah, I haven't gotten much better on that count. All right, I can't find the site, but Wargamers Online on Facebook, and this group, I talked to them at length off the channel, and let me tell you, these guys have got the magic. Just amazing. I love them. I can't get enough of them. I think they're absolutely fantastic. All right, guys, that's my screenshot show for the day. I'm here, guys. I'm here every day. I'm putting those projects through. I'm working with my artists, and I love it. My life is really good. So thanks for tuning in, and I hope you got your information for the day. 3, 2,